Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the June 9th, 2022 meeting of the Penfield Planning Board. Lori, would you please call the roll?
Sure. Hetzke.
Hetzke here.
Aken.
Aken here.
Burton.
Burton here.
Kanauer.
Kanauer here.
Tydings.
Tydings here.
Sangster.
Sangster here.
Weissar.
Weissar here.
O'Connor.
O'Connor here.
Gray here.
Okay, thank you. Just for the folks here in the auditorium, we begin our meetings typically from 6:30 to 7 to have a work session, and then the public hearing generally starts at 7. If we get our business done in the work session prior to 7 o'clock, we'll start the public hearing immediately following our completion of our business. We'll take maybe a 2-minute recess and get set up for the public hearing. So we have minutes from the last meeting. Hopefully everybody's had an opportunity to review them, and could we entertain a motion to approve?
Tydings motion to approve.
I'll second.
Hetzke.
Hetzke, aye.
Aken.
Aken, aye.
Burton.
Burton, aye.
Kanauer.
Kanauer, aye.
Tydings.
Tydings, aye.
Okay, Doug, would you
All right.
like to go through our tabled items?
All right, starting with our first application is the PathStone development. So since we last met, staff has provided a determination based on the authorized official. We'd been looking at what counts as non-residential space and whether open space or public space can count as a non-residential use. We have provided that to the applicant. They have requested additional time to review it and respond to it, so they've asked to be tabled at this time.
Okay.
Motion to table.
Okay, do we have a second?
Tydings, aye.
Tidings second or Tidings
Second, I'm sorry.
Second.
All right.
Hetzke.
Hetzke, aye.
Aken.
Aken, aye.
Burton.
Burton, aye.
Kanauer.
Kanauer, aye.
Tydings.
Tydings, aye.
Okay.
All right, our second application, Arbors at Penfield. Staff is going through a final review of a draft negative declaration. We'll be providing that to the board shortly for your review, but at this time you can continue tabling it until we get that out. Okay.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to continue tabling this application.
I'll second.
Hetzke.
Hetzke, aye.
Aken.
Aken, aye.
Burton.
Burton, aye.
Kanauer.
Kanauer, aye.
Tydings.
Tydings, aye.
All right, our third application, Penfield Heights. We are in a similar situation with Penfield Heights. Staff has a draft neg deck that we are finalizing. It'll be going through final staff review before we'll provide it to the board for your review.
Okay.
Okay, I make a motion to continue to table this application until those documents are received by the board.
I'll second.
Hetzke.
Hetzke, aye.
Aken.
Aken, aye.
Burton.
Burton, aye.
Kanauer.
Kanauer, aye.
Tidings.
Tydings, aye.
All right, our next application, 1838 Penfield Road, the Verizon cell tower. So staff was in receipt of a memo from Bergman Associates. The board had hired them on retainer for our visual impact analysis. Staff is still going through that, and we provided it to the board for your review ahead of the meeting.
And we're still waiting on the other report from the
We're
other
still
consultant.
waiting on the other report from the other consultant. We reached out recently, have not heard back. We're hoping to receive that shortly.
Okay.
Okay.
Come on.
I did look through the preliminary report, and as part of the scope, were we asking for alternative structures as part of that? I thought that was part of it, not just a monopole. They talk about landscaping around the base, but I'd be interested too from a visual impact if Bergman could look at possible alternative structures.
That's certainly something we can look at.
Okay. And second of all, they make reference to properties that are on the National Register, and then they list the Penfield Road Historic District. I believe it's really the Penfield Four Corners Historic District that impacts not just Penfield Road, but also 5 Mile Line. So that should be,
Well, there's two separate historic districts. There's
Okay.
District 2 is a cluster, I believe it's District 2 is a cluster of properties on Penfield Road, starting with the Penfield Baptist Church and goes up to just before you get to Peachtree. There's a cluster of homes there that is one
Right.
historic district. There's a separate historic district that runs 5 Mile Line Road from the Fairport, or Perrington, Penfield town line up to, I believe it's 1932 5 Mile Line Road, just north of
yeah, just on the
Wayland.
other side of Wayland.
So those are two
Yeah.
separate districts, but both of them will be visually impacted. And I believe
Right, they
listed-
just referred to that as the Penfield Road Historic District in the preliminary report. So
Okay.
if they could, I
You
guess,
want to clarify?
clarify
Clarify.
that.
Yeah.
Okay,
Also, I'd like to ask the applicant, what is the lowest height that they could go? What's the absolute lowest height?
Certainly something we can ask, and it may be something that we'll get more
put that-
information on based on the other consultant who I believe is doing more of the technical analysis.
Right.
okay.
So any other items
Nope.
before we table that?
So I'll,
Oh, before we do a motion to table,
John, you have something?
Yes, the only other thing before we table is acknowledgement for the record for extension of the shot clock.
Oh,
Just
right.
Oh,
by
yeah.
way of background, from the last meeting, obviously, we were working on retaining consultants, one for this board and one for the zoning board relating to the evaluation of the methodology for RF coverage data. So that's still in process, as has been stated. The preliminary report from Bergman Associates has been delivered to the applicant for review, and then based on the feedback tonight, I expect that'll be supplemented in some way, shape, or form, so they'll have a couple of deliverables to provide back to this board. So in light of information still to be received by this board and some outstanding issues, I spoke with the applicant's counsel. They have agreed to extend the shot clock to August 12th, 2022, which will be the day after this planning board's August meeting. So if one of the members would introduce a motion to acknowledge on the consent of the applicant that the shot clock for this application has been extended to August 12th, 2022.
Yeah.
Bob, do you want to go ahead and do that?
sure. So I'll make a motion to set a
Requested.
date of August 12th as the revised shot clock date for this application.
Do you have a second?
I'll second.
Hetzke,
Hetzke, aye.
Aken,
Aken, aye.
Burton,
Burton, aye.
Kanauer,
Kanauer, aye.
Tydings.
Tydings, aye.
All right.
And I'll make a motion to continue tabling this application.
I'll second.
Hetzke,
Hetzke, aye.
Aken,
Aken, aye.
Burton,
Burton, aye.
Kanauer,
Kanauer, aye.
Tydings.
Tydings, aye.
all
Okay.
right. Our final table application for the
Before you read the
evening.
next application, I will be recusing myself from this portion of the hearing.
All right. So our final tabled application is the McDonald's on Empire Boulevard. We have been in communication with the applicant. They sent us revised plans and responses to comments this morning or this afternoon. Staff has not had a time to review it. We did upload it for you guys as part of your drop. But they understand that the board will like additional time to review it, so they're planning to come back on the 23rd.
Okay. All right.
Yep. I'll make the motion to continue table.
I'll second.
Tydings.
Hetzke,
Hetzke, aye.
Aken,
Aken, aye.
Kanauer,
Kanauer, aye.
Tydings.
Tydings, aye.
Okay. So we have no action items tonight?
No action items tonight.
Okay, so why don't we take about, I don't know, 3 minutes and begin the public hearing at 6:45. And the applicant can
Either table, yeah.
come up to one of these two tables. If you have a laptop that you want to present with, and we have an HDMI cable.
Yes.
So you can kind of drive the bus and do your own presentation. Otherwise, Mike will advance through and bring up whatever files that you want to show. So however you want to do it is fine. But why don't we get started, and we'll reconvene in 2.5 minutes or 4 minutes or whatever.
At 6:45.
6:45. The time until 6:45 changes every second. All right, welcome back, everyone, to the public hearing portion of our meeting, and we'll begin the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thanks for coming, everyone. We have one item on our agenda this evening. For those of you who are not familiar with the process of the planning board, we have our staff will read the application, then the applicant will present. Once that is complete, board members will ask questions of the applicant. And when that's complete, we'll open it up to input from the audience. There are some, it's not absolutely necessary, but if you'd like to fill out one of these slips, if you'd like to speak, they're in that blue little basket by the door, and you can fill out your name and address and contact information, and then pass it along to Lori, and it'll get up to me, and I'll call you up as it happens. If you don't want to do that and you raise your hand once we get through the names that are already here, I'm happy to do that as well. Once you're called up, please go to this second table, direct any of your questions, state your name and address for the public record, and then make any statements that you have or comments that you have, direct them to the board, not to the applicant. All right? And also, from time to time, the planning board hears applications that are controversial, that generate a significant amount of public opposition. Given some of the public comments that we've received to date, we believe this application may be one that fits that category. Before proceeding with the public hearing, I want to remind the members of the public here and watching the video feed that the planning board has limited jurisdiction and a narrow focus on this application. The applicant is seeking 3 types of approval from this board: subdivision, site plan, and a conditional use permit. When evaluating these requests, the planning board's jurisdiction is limited to the factors of consideration as set forth in the Town of Penfield's code, which is based on state law. Factors of consideration for subdivision approval are set forth in section 250-11.3. The factors of consideration for site plan approval are set forth in section 250-12.3. And the factors of consideration for a conditional use permit are set forth in section 250-13.3. In addition to the factors set forth in the code, Planning Board will also consider the potential environmental impacts under the State Environmental Quality Review Act, or commonly known as SEQR. As currently proposed, we understand that the applicant may also require variances from the Zoning Board of Appeals. Planning Board's jurisdiction is limited to the factors just mentioned. The Planning Board is not permitted to consider an applicant's political affiliation or free speech activities when rendering its decision. The planning board is also not permitted to deny an application based solely on public opposition. There must be evidence in the record to support its decision based on the factors of consideration. However, the planning board welcomes comments from members of the public that are in favor or opposed to this in any other application. Comments that are geared to the factors of consideration will help the board make its determination. All right, Doug, would you like to read our, I guess, first and only application?
All right. Bowler Engineering, MA, LLC, 70 Linden Oaks, Rochester, New York, 14625. On behalf of Cary Ventures Fairport 9 Mile Point Road, LLC, requests under Chapter 250, Article 11-11.2, Article 12-12.2, and Article 13-13.2 of the Code of the Town of Penfield for preliminary and final subdivision, site plan, and a conditional use permit approval for the proposed construction of a 5,600 square foot Chick-fil-A restaurant building with drive-through and associated site improvements on 5.1 acres located at 2130 Fairport 9 Mile Point Road and 2195 Penfield Road. The properties are now formally owned by Cary Ventures Fairport 9 Mile Point Road, LLC, and zoned General Business GB. Application number 22P-0015, SBLs 140.01-2-4.1 and 140.01-2-6.998.
Okay. Floor is yours.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name's Tim Freitag with Bowler Engineering. I'm here on behalf of the applicant, Chick-fil-A, Inc. Alongside me tonight is Amy Dake with SRF Associates. She's the traffic engineer studying the project. And alongside us in the audience is Mr. Clint Mattson from Atlanta, Georgia, representing Chick-fil-A this evening as applicant. We're here to discuss the redevelopment project at 2130 Fairport 9 Mile Point Road. If on the screen we could pull up the existing aerial to start the presentation. This is the site location. We're at the southeast of the intersection of Fairport 9 Mile Point Road. On the left of the screen and to the north is Penfield Road. This location was formerly known as the Corner Store Restaurant and Cafe. There used to be approximately 6,000 square foot restaurant on the site, and on the screen here you can kind of see in the middle of the site where that building used to be. Along with that building, just to the north of where the mouse is being circled, was also another 4,000 square foot contractor storage building. These two structures have since been demolished, but as you can see on the map here, there's still some parking lot pavement, lighting, and other site features that are proposed to be removed as part of this project. On the east side of the site, you can see there is a shared access drive that interconnects all of these parcels. As part of a recently approved project to the south of ours, known as the Burger King, they'll be further connecting those commercial uses to this existing shared access drive that'll be maintained as part of our project and improved. We're proposing, as I mentioned, to demolish the existing features that are left. We're in the GB General Business Zoning District, permitted use subject to site plan review and conditional use permit, as we talked about earlier. And we have identified the need for an area variance for our drive-through canopy. If we could jump over to the colored site plan. This site plan was included in our application package. This evening, we just put some color to it to help demonstrate what we're proposing to do. We have a 5,600 square foot quick service restaurant located along the site frontage. It's shown on the screen in the orange color. We have a dual lane drive-through. This is an isolated drive-through. And by isolated, what I mean is it is around the perimeter of the site. This technique is used in our design to isolate the drive-through vehicle activity from the dine-in parking activity. So they've really mastered how to separate the two flows of traffic in the site with this isolated drive-through layout. You might be familiar more with the traditional layout where the drive-through just wraps the building and there's parking around the perimeter of the site. What happens in that condition is anybody parking to use the dine-in room has to cross the drive-through traffic lanes to get into the building. So this isolated layout separates anybody parking and walking into the building versus the drive-through around the perimeter of the site. So pedestrian safety is critical in the design of this site plan. As you enter the drive-through, we've got 2 lanes. 2 lanes will be used for meal order and meal delivery. Chick-fil-A has recently modified the meal delivery option. It's no longer your typical drive-through window where you pick up your meal. It's actually a sliding door. And what it allows is meal fulfillment in 2 lanes and not just 1. So team members can take that meal and service your second lane of the drive-through through that door rather than just hand out the window for the first lane. Provides efficiency in the drive-through. Over the drive-through, we've got drive-through canopies. These are similar to the canopies you might see at a recently opened store in Aronicoy, New York. Slim, sleek, 9-inch black or dark metal bronze fascia. That canopy is going to be situated over the meal fulfillment area at the drive-through window door and also at the order point. So at the order point, we also have shaded in gray on this plan a canopy where you would take your order at the menu boards. The Chick-fil-A operation of the drive-through also allows team members in the drive-through with tablets to take orders. So sometimes you're not just ordering through a kiosk, you're ordering with face-to-face interaction, expediting service. Around these 2 lanes, we have a bypass lane for 3/4 the length of the drive-through. You can see this drive-through has got a few bends. We've got a unique lot configuration here. So this bypass lane, which is always recommended when room allows in case a lane ever causes, there's ever a stall of traffic and we need to exit vehicles in that bypass lane, we can use that. But here it's also important to add extra width just because of the numerous turns we have here. So that bypass lane, it merges as you approach the drive-through window and door to 2 lanes. So we only have 2 lanes of meal fulfillment, not 3. On site, we have the rest of the parking field shielded from Fairport 9 Mile Point Road. That's in the back eastern portion of the site. As I mentioned, you can park and get into the building without having to cross the drive-through traffic, which is a great pedestrian safety feature. We've got crosswalks going into the building from the parking lot, and there will be an outdoor patio dining area in front of the building. We've got a lot line adjustment as part of this project. The existing Cornerstone restaurant was just a square box kind of where our building and a portion of the drive-through and just the parking along the front of the store is. That's just not big enough to service our drive-through and the parking needed for the restaurant. So we're proposing a lot line adjustment for the 2 parcels that are part of this application. That line adjustment would allow for 81 parking spaces within Lot 1 to meet code for the proposed restaurant. And then we're proposing additional parking off-site as shared parking and overflow parking for our facility and the rest of the remaining parcel that will maintain under the landlord's control. The drive-through stack has capacity for 50 vehicles within the 2 lanes, plus the bypass. The building, as part of our application, we've submitted some building elevations that are colored to represent what the building looks like. It's a 2-tone building facade, and we've dressed up it would be the western elevation on the next sheet that faces the road frontage. This is actually the back of the building, right? Because our parking lot is on the east side and the west side of our building is facing the road. But we've dressed up the back of the building to include additional windows to present it as like a front facade, just given that that's the facade of the building that's going to be facing the road. Inside, we'll have approximately 78 indoor seats, plus a approximately 6 patio tables outside for dine-in guests. Utilities are pretty straightforward. There wasn't a building serviced on public utilities there in the past. We're going to reuse what utilities we can, and we'll improve the utility infrastructure as needed for our site. We're also proposing stormwater improvements to bring the existing on-site stormwater features up to current standards, but also mitigate any additional impervious as part of this project. The drive-through in the front yard is going to be shielded by a black aluminum fence. That fence is going to be similar to the fence around our patio, and then we're going to have a shrub row in front of that to help shield some of the headlights and the drive-through stacking within the drive-through, since that's a sensitive item in our front yard. And then the canopy over the meal delivery, or I'm sorry, over the order point. The canopy over the order point extends a little further into the front yard in the side yard setbacks, so we'll need a variance for that drive-through canopy. To date, we've been working alongside the town and town staff to pull together the application that was submitted on April 28th. That application included an EAF, a narrative summarizing the details that I just went through. It included factors for consideration of the site plan and the conditional use per section 250, 12.3, and 13.4 of the zoning ordinance. We attended a PRC meeting with the town department to talk through some preliminary concerns and questions of the project to refine the plan that you've seen here tonight. We resubmitted to a first round of engineering comments that were provided on this project on June 3rd. We still have some items to work through, but we're looking forward to receiving additional comments from the board and the public tonight to consider while we continue with the design of this project. So, Mr. Chairman, I'll turn it over to you and the board for any further questions or comments. We appreciate your time this evening.
Okay, thank you for your presentation. Jim, you want to start off?
Yeah. So it's probably not a surprise to you that the biggest issue here is going to be traffic and parking. Okay, so let's talk about parking first. In the zoning analysis table that you provided, you indicated how many spaces were required by town code based on the size of the facility, and how many were existing and how many are proposed. Well, your proposed is 81, but they add up to 193. So perhaps you could explain to the board why you need 193 spaces. And while you're at it, the remainder being under control of the landlord, how does that work when this is behind the restaurant you're proposing? How does the landlord have control over the rest of these parking spaces that are contiguous to the parking lot? I'm sorry?
The mic here. The mic.
Can the rest of the audience hear okay? So?
Brian, can we boost
little
the
closer.
board mics?
Sure. So to touch on parking a little bit here, the proposed zoning table just summarizes what's proposed on Lot 1, and that's where we're adjusting the lot line for the Chick-fil-A development. So that's why the total numbers are a little different from 81's proposed on Lot 1, and then there's going to be additional parking off-site to get to the total numbers that you were talking about. So Lot 1 would be leased by Chick-fil-A, and then there's going to be shared parking and shared access agreements with the landlord for the rest of the parking. So that's where the landlord would still have control over there, but it's shared parking. As long as the number of parking stays the same, then it's a deal between Chick-fil-A and the landlord of how that works out. So do we need 180 plus parking spaces? No, I don't think so. And that was brought up in our PRC meeting and some comments from the town preliminarily. So Chick-fil-A is going back to talk with the landlord to see what we can remove from the application, if we can increase green space and eliminate some of the parking. The indication right now is we'd like to be around the 100, 110 parking space requirement to meet the Chick-fil-A requirements. So they're going to be working through that with the landlord to see if we can reduce or bank parking back there.
So your plan indicates an interior occupant load of 74. You mentioned 78 in your presentation.
Hold on one sec. Can you hear now? Yes? Very little.
Would you like to come up closer to a speaker, sir? Would that help? There's a Is that a speaker right there?
No, the
No?
speakers are just the two big guys
Just the
we
two
have.
big ones. You're welcome
hanging
to
on
pull
the
a
wall.
chair up a little closer if that would be helpful.
There's also the hearing system.
There's also the hearing system?
Over there.
Okay. We do have, I believe we have headphone hearing systems over here if you'd like one of those as well. Yes. Brian, do they need their own headphones for it, or do we have?
It will be up in a minute.
Cool.
Sir, the IT department is going to come up and help you with a hearing device.
I'm just saying I can hear the gentleman over there on the right plainly.
Yeah, I can hear him too better as well.
Brian, can you increase Jim's mic mix?
He's on his way up.
Yeah, maybe on the stairs already. Or Dave, if you're down there. Is there any way we could boost the board a little more, make them at least through our system?
We just did, so.
Okay.
Can't crank that any higher.
Oh, okay.
You guys can keep going.
Okay, so your desired amount, or your client's desired amount, is 100 to 110. So how many employees are in the facility at any given time?
So in the zoning table, I think we included a breakdown of the employees and in our application.
Yeah, I'd like the public to hear this.
So the breakdown for the parking calculation was provided on the plan. It includes 1.5 spaces per person of legal occupancy, plus one for each employee. So we had 94-person occupancy, plus 10 employees to require the 81 parking spaces.
Is it common for the interior seating to be full during peak hours, or is most of your business drive-through?
Depends if you're asking now or last year during COVID. It very fluctuates. The dining rooms are busy. The drive-thru is busy. The drive-thru's approximately in this area about 60% of the business, and then the rest would be dine-in. And that number fluctuates per location, per store, depending on the demand.
So can you share with the board what types of traffic calming measures Chick-fil-A has used in the past to overcome problems with overflow of traffic, such as what we all saw on the news when the grease store opened?
Sure. So the biggest innovation actually came out of COVID. When COVID happened, the dining rooms were closed, and it was drive-through only. So the drive-throughs saw a surge of traffic because the dining room was closed, so your only option to be serviced was through the drive-through. That's where this drive-through door came into light. So they saw replacing that drive-through window with a door allows you to serve 2 lanes rather than 1 at the drive-through exit. So that increased the speed of service and the stacking observed in your drive-through because you could get vehicles through and not stacking out onto the main road as further. They also have team members in the drive-through with tablets, taking orders, pulling vehicles forward. Sometimes you get a large gap in the drive-through, so they can direct traffic to pull forward to make sure there's no stacking backing out of the drive-through. So they have revolutionized just bringing back people to help rather than focusing on a kiosk and the people in the drive-thru to just pull through. So that's 2 ways that they expedite service within the drive-thru.
So in the town of Penfield and many other areas, I'm sure, there continues to be struggles with restaurants, both fast food restaurants and conventional sit-down restaurants, with staffing. It's not uncommon for restaurants to close unexpectedly for a day or two because they don't have adequate staff. And we've noticed as we go through fast food stores in this immediate area that the travel time around the drive-thru has been extended. So how does Chick-fil-A expect to address the staffing shortage that's hit the hospitality industry? And what kind of assurance would the town have that they would have adequate staff in place to make sure that there are order takers out with tablets regardless of the weather, and that there were runners with food going out the door to make sure that we weren't getting bottlenecked through the double drive-through?
Sure. I can take that comment back to Chick-fil-A and maybe get a response from somebody who handles hiring to further address that. But in my experience, Chick-fil-A has such a great leadership program. They really haven't had a struggle finding team members because team members want to work there. They have great success finding great team members who want to thrive there. You talk to some other owners or operators from Irondequoit and Henrietta. Some of the programs they offer to their team members is leading in the industry that helps them attract great talent. But I will further take that comment back to Chick-fil-A and see if we can provide you more information on that.
Okay. And I'd like to comment on the executive summary and the traffic study, if I may. So the first thing that jumps out at me is that the report indicates a significant portion of the proposed volume comes from the existing traffic on Penfield Road and Fairport 9 Mile Point Road. I'd just like to point out that there are vacant commercial stores in the immediate vicinity of this location right now. And I think we're just starting to see more people physically go to brick and mortar stores and other establishments, so that the traffic from a study that might have been done 2 months ago might not be indicative of where we are in the immediate future. So before you comment on that, I have something else I'd like to comment on. So item number 4 in your executive summary said, traffic exiting the Penfield Road driveway turning left onto Penfield Road may experience long delays greater than 2 minutes during peak times. So have there been any consideration for right out to change that intersection? If we're going to have 110 additional spaces coming from that location, plus the Burger King, and 250 is busy, and assuming that the access road gets repaved, and people become aware of that as an easier way to exit that corner, is that something that should be considered?
I don't like the idea of restricting a driveway because what you're seeing is a peak hour condition where we have long delays when we have a lot of traffic on Penfield Road. Other times of the day, that driveway will operate just fine, and you'll be able to make a left turn out with no problem. So I don't want to force all of the traffic to go to another driveway just because we have a potential problem during one peak time period. People will learn once they go there, and if they're familiar with the area, that they can go to another driveway. Which also brings me to your first point, which was talking about traffic coming from the existing traffic on the highways. And what that actually refers to is what we call pass-by traffic. And what that means is that we have traffic on 250 and 441 that are on those roadways now, whether they're going to Wegmans or going to work or going to drop their kids off at daycare or school. And they may choose to stop into Chick-fil-A to pick up dinner on their way home from work or, grab lunch while they're out. That's what we call pass-by trips. And so we're expecting almost half of the traffic to come from trips that are already on Penfield Road and Route 250 that are going somewhere else now, that are going to stop into Chick-fil-A to grab a bite to eat.
So lastly, item 3 of your executive summary was summarized with this statement: there is more than sufficient on-site storage for the projected vehicle queues under typical conditions. So could you comment on that? Because obviously the disparity between peak traffic and typical conditions is significant here.
Sure. What we're referring to as far as typical conditions is peak hour conditions on a daily basis once the store gets into its normal operation conditions, meaning not its first couple of weeks of opening. Because as we know, when Chick-fil-A first opens, they experience a much larger influx of traffic than once things settle down and they get into a normal routine operation. We saw that with Greece. We saw that with Henrietta. So Chick-fil-A plans for the first couple weeks after they open to manage traffic, and that's not what we're designing for ultimately, because that's not the typical condition. So we're looking at typical conditions after the store's been open for a month or so.
Would you be receptive to issuing an addendum that would clarify that for the public record?
Sure.
Okay. So one of the other things that, one of the other comments from the PRC committee was asking whether or not there was consideration for land banking some of these spaces. So I understand that that's something that you're going to discuss with the landlord. That could be a significant issue here. That's an awful lot of parking for a restaurant that can hold 74 people and has 10 employees.
Understood. We'll certainly provide a response on that in the future.
Okay? That's all I have, AJ.
Okay. I have a couple of questions. Can you explain this drive-through door for me better? I mean, is it a door in the building where an employee comes out and hands you your meal? Or, so if you're 2 lanes, the person in the far lane away from the building, how does that work?
Yeah. So on the screen here, just put up a rendering of that feature, and it still has the window in case low volume where they do want to hand your meal out the window. But high volume, that door opens completely up, so you can walk in and out of the restaurant. So what they do is similar to when you order, it's face-to-face interaction. They can hand the meal to the car in the first lane. That team member goes back into the restaurant, grabs the meal for the second car. They'll walk around the back of the first car into the second drive-through lane. There's a 3-foot pedestrian area for team members to hand that meal to the car in the second lane.
How many stores has this been used at throughout the
Yeah, this rolled out
system?
2020, 2021, and all projects moving forward have utilized this. So we just have an opening in Clay, New York. In Clay, New York, there's a similar site in Cicero that had similar traffic concerns that Greece had in this area. And the Clay implemented this drive-through window, and Clay doesn't have the issues that we have seen at Cicero and Greece, so it has significantly helped. Chick-fil-A also has their own safety review committee, where it took months to get this approved by their safety review committee to make sure that their team members were safe.
That was going to be my next
Servicing
question. Has there
the
been
meal
an
in the
increase in incidents of drivers not paying attention? They're sitting texting, they take their foot off the brake and hit the team member. Has it happened at all? And if so, how many, what's the percentage?
Yeah, none that I'm aware of, but I'll certainly take that back and ask for more information out with Chick-fil-A. But again, it's team members, so they're employees who are doing this. They're going to be trained in the safe manner to do it. But again, I've been through Chick-fil-A long enough to know I know they have an internal safety review committee that looks at a lot of their site safety features, and this took a while to get approved, and it has been approved, and I haven't heard any issues since then, and they're moving it forward on all projects. But I'll certainly ask that question if there has been any incidents.
So the car following that first car, I don't mean to beat a dead horse with this, but I'm truly curious about it. That second car in the line, is there a light that says, or a stop sign or something that says, wait until you proceed, almost like you're going through the border or something? Or
No, so
are you just expected to know not to tailgate the car in front of you?
So it's a stop condition when you pull up to the window, right? So the vehicle is stopped
Yeah.
because you're waiting for your meal, right? So when they service the second lane, all vehicles are stopped in that area. Once you hand somebody their meal, they can pull forward, right? So that's when the car behind them could pull forward.
Correct.
So if you service the meal in the second lane, you're never crossing that second lane of traffic. So even if that
But
car
you're
is
crossing the
pulling-
first lane.
Correct.
So that's, I guess my question is, how do you make sure that the person in the vehicle in the first lane, the second vehicle in the first lane, you hand vehicle one their meal, you go back in to get lane two their meal, lane one vehicle drives away
He pulls
while
forward.
you're getting that, and the next guy starts pulling forward, is not paying attention.
That's right. He pulls forward, and then the next person comes around the back of that car to pull the second lane. And it's an alternating meal delivery system, because if you look after that two lane, there's a stop bar, and you don't want both cars pulling forward.
So wait a minute, there's a stop bar.
Yes.
So the stop bar stops the car that's behind the first car from pulling forward and hitting the team member.
No, the stop bar is for when you pull forward after you have your meal. So on the screen here, you can see the stop bar is further away from the building, in the front of the building.
Okay,
So after you get your meal, you pull up to that stop bar, and then you go back into traffic. So it's an alternating system for when your cars move out. So when you deliver your meals, it's alternating meals. So one car moves forward, the other car stands still. And that allows one car to stop when the team member is walking by.
And I think that the team member is never walking in front of cars, the first cars in line. They're walking behind them.
they're walking
So if
behind the first car in line, but that first
Yeah.
car in line has their food
Yeah, so
at
the
this
fir-
point,
if the first
and they're
car
pulling
adjacent-
forward.
Yeah.
As the team member turns back into the store to grab the meal for the guy in lane two.
So at that point, the next car behind that first car would have pulled up and stopped, so they're waiting for a meal. But the next meal that's going to come out is for the car in the second lane. So at
Okay,
that
so they
point,
wait
you have-
until,
Yes.
okay.
At
now I
that point, you have
understand.
two stopped cars.
All right. They're not trying to grab the meal as fast as they can before that second car pulls forward
No.
and run in front of them while they're moving forward
And
to
at
get
that
to
point,
lane two.
If the store is operating at a busy time like that, they have multiple team members out there that are operating.
Okay. All right. Typical busiest times of day. What are they?
Midday during the week, lunchtime, evening dinner time peak, and Saturday lunchtime.
They serve breakfast?
They do.
What time do they open?
6:30 a.m. to 10 p.m.
Okay.
And then breakfast has not been a big sell in upstate New York.
Do they have a late-night drive-through?
10 p.m. And the operator has an option to close the dining room at 9, but keep the drive-through open till 10, but that's very rare.
Does not have the option to keep the drive-through open till midnight or 1. Okay. Nationally, what percentage of business is drive-through versus eat-in?
It's in the 60s typically, but that has variation over the past 3 years just with COVID, but generally it's in the 60s.
So in the 60s pre-COVID or in the 60s post?
It's starting to get back
Post-COVID.
to that 60 range, but it depends on
From a
location.
higher percentage?
Yeah, because during COVID, at times, the dining room was closed.
Right, so 100%. Right. But once the eat-in areas were reopened, did you find a lot of customers coming back in, or did the majority of them stay drive-through?
Took a while. I think still to this day, there's sensitivity for some people who, wear masks and are careful when they're going in buildings.
Okay. Okay, I had a question about business dropping off after the initial grand opening, and you addressed that. You had mentioned this bypass lane, the third bypass lane. Can you explain that again to me? I'm looking at, there's 3 ordering lanes, yes? Or 2?
2 ordering lanes. That third could be used during grand opening period to help provide additional stack and expedite service, but generally that's just going to be a bypass lane.
So the intent is, other than peak season, peak times, whatever, if it gets really busy, you open up lane 3, but generally speaking, there's 2 drive-through lanes and then kind of an escape lane or a bypass lane.
Correct.
Okay. And what do you consider the front of the building? East side?
The front is the east side facing the parking lot. That's where the entrance to the dining room is.
And what's your lot coverage for green space at the moment? Do you know the percentage?
This plan is at 64%.
Okay. Have you proposed, can you describe any potential screening, buffering to the neighbors to the east? I mean, it's starting to get pretty close to the backs of those houses that are to the east.
Sure, so maybe we could flip over to the existing aerial. Great, so
Sorry, AJ.
so the
I know
black,
you're not used to this, Mike.
Right.
You're fill-in tonight.
the black boundaries are the existing 2 parcels that we're here to discuss. Obviously, those will be adjusted as part of the lot line. But you can see where that existing road is on the eastern portion of the site. That road will get pushed over to the east, but there's an existing pond there today that the hand is on. So that pond is going to remain. We're going to bring that stormwater basin up to current standards. And then the existing vegetation from that pond to those neighbors will be maintained.
Okay. Would you be willing to consider additional plantings?
Could we jump back over to the site plan? Sorry. So plantings between the new location of the shared driveway and the pond there?
Either there or on the east side of the pond, to provide some additional screening,
Buffering there? Sure.
buffering.
Yeah, we can look into that when we're designing that stormwater basin to take opportunity for areas to plant some additional trees.
And so how the road kind of S's through and does all these 90s today, it's proposed to come straight south off of the east side of the M&T Bank
Correct.
and head, instead of doing those turns, it heads straight south and then would make a 90-degree turn to the west where the current road is, so that it would essentially make that navigation through that area easier.
Yeah. And that 90 is a good traffic calming measure, so it's not a straight dash. You have to slow down for that turn.
Who's maintaining the road after the fact?
So the,
'Cause it's in terrible condition today.
good question. I can follow up on that depending on how the shared access agreements are written. There's shared access agreements over that today for different parties. So in that document, it probably outlines maintenance.
I mean, yeah, I mean, it's not used very often today because it's so ill-maintained.
Sure.
You mentioned pass-by traffic, and you mentioned the term 50%. So would that mean that you anticipate that the other 50% would be like destination-type customers? So they're, and what size geographic area do you anticipate drawing that extra 50% from?
That's a good question. I mean, we've got existing Chick-fil-A's now in Greece, Arundecoit, and Henrietta. So this is on the east side. Based on the study area, because we studied the main intersection at 250 and 441 and the site driveways, we looked at kind of a radius outside of that and which direction traffic would come from. I can't really speak to how far they would drive to get here, but figure 6 in our traffic study shows the percentages of where traffic would be coming from. So if you look at that, we have, let's see, about 35% coming from the east, to and from the east. We've got 15% to and from the north on 250, about 25% to and from the west on 441, and about 25% to and from the south towards Fairport.
Okay. Generally speaking, what size demographic or population base does the company generally figure on in terms of placing locations?
Do you have any?
I don't know if it's so much based on demographics as it is the
Or
roadway.
population, or-
No, the traffic volumes on the roadway. They're looking to locate on high-volume roadways so that they can draw the pass-by traffic from the traffic that's already there. So that's why they chose the intersection at 441 and 250, because both roadways are already high-volume roadways.
Okay.
Convenience.
Okay. That's all I have at the moment. I may come back with more. Anybody else on the?
I have a follow-up question
Okay.
to, you were asking about the doorway where they,
Make sure you're in the mic.
you were asking about the doorway where team members can go out and deliver food to people in the second lane. So, one, does Chick-fil-A track the number of minutes and seconds from the time somebody places an order to the time that they receive their food and pull away? And if so, is there a statistic on the improvement in that service time after this new delivery method has been implemented in other stores?
I can ask that question and see if there's any data that we could provide. In my experience, it fluctuates depending on, like you were getting to earlier, staffing. operations, experience of team members. You're going to have new staff here when it opens to help during that grand opening overflow. But what Chick-fil-A also does during grand opening, they bring in a staff of 20, 25 experienced Chick-fil-A team members to come in and train and help manage the grand opening issue, so that helps. with that
Experienced people
nuance.
from other stores.
Correct. Yeah. But I can look into if there's any stat of how this is improved. But just looking at other stores, they've had success with it and continue rolling it out at other locations.
I mean, it's pretty common in the fast food drive-through industry for businesses to track from the time of the order to the time of delivery of what they ordered. That's fairly common today, so.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a parameter that they try to stay within to make sure their team is operating efficiently.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Kelly?
Yeah, so thank you for your presentation. I actually visited the Henrietta location last night with my son, which I thought was prime business hours. We went for dinner about 5:30. We sat in the restaurant. There were maybe 15 people there. So my question is, with the number of parking spots, like Jim had mentioned, that seems like an extraordinary amount of parking for, and you're planning for, typical pattern, not grand opening or initial opening pattern. So are you sure that that amount of parking is necessary? What have you seen with other stores in terms of, number of people that have come in during grand opening time to typical? What's the drop off?
Fluctuates based on location quite a bit and time of day. 15, I would say, is light. You got there at a
I don't know if it was
light
because
time.
it was Tuesday or what, but we were there between 5:30 and 6 o'clock, and I would have thought that people would have been picking up dinner, coming in.
Sure.
That we were in, and there was nobody.
Maybe try Saturday next time if you're around the area.
Yeah.
But Henrietta it's part of a shopping center. So is Arundequoy. So those sites have close to 70 parking spaces on site, but they also have overflow flexibility because they're in a shopping center. People could park at Home Depot at Arundequoy and walk over. Here we don't have that, and that's kind of what we're trying to create, is the success is usually better when you're in a shopping center environment, so you don't have that overflow going out to the right-of-way or neighboring businesses. So that's kind of what we're trying to create here, is that shopping center feel. So we're comfortable closer to that 100 mark than the 180 that's currently shown, as we mentioned earlier. So we'll
Yeah.
work on trying to bank the rest of it.
Okay. And then my other question, and forgive me, maybe I'm just misunderstanding the bypass lane for the drive-through. So 2 places to order, 2 lanes, and that lane is for overflow or grand opening time. Is that lane not during that time blocked off so people just can't zip through it, or how does that going to work?
Yeah, they have a few, what they call delineator posts. It's a skinny little traffic post that has a magnetic bottom that they could place through there to block off that lane. And then if there's ever any issue with the first 2 lanes, they could open that up to pull vehicles through.
Okay. Okay. Those are my questions for now.
Okay.
Bob? Yeah, I had a few questions. Could you review the variances that you're looking for in this project?
Sure. So if you look at the proposed building, to the north of the building is a gray hatched area, and that's the proposed order point canopy. So that's a structure that vehicles pull under to place their order, and it provides weather protection for team members who are out there taking orders with tablets and other devices. It's, if you look there, it's close to that northern property line, which is considered a side yard. A side yard setback is 20 feet, where we
Okay.
have just under 9 feet there.
Okay.
And then you'll also see it's a little closer to Fairport 9 Mile Point Road than the building is. The setback from the road is 80 feet, and that canopy is just under 72 feet.
Okay. The, you stated that, I guess, the queuing has a 50-car capacity. Does that include the bypass lane, the third lane?
No, that's in the
Okay.
2 full operating lanes.
The two, okay. And would you anticipate during any busy times that there's going to be queuing that's going to extend past that drive-through lane?
Beyond the grand opening surcharge that Amy was talking about
Yeah,
earlier,
yeah.
the hope is no. We feel pretty comfortable with that 50 number.
Okay. The parking spots that are along the north boundary, it looks like that's where the cars would go into the drive-through. What's the walking path from there to the building, or would those be more for employee parking?
Yeah, we had talked internally about designating those for team members.
Yes,
They could park further away from the store entrance, so the prime parking is available for guests. But you also notice on this plan, further to the east of even the shared driveway, there's an existing sidewalk between, right there on the screen where the mouse is.
okay,
That existing sidewalk connects out to Penfield Road in the right-of-way, and the sidewalk out along Penfield Road, it stops right there today. So we're going to pick that sidewalk up, provide a crosswalk across the shared access drive, and a sidewalk all the way through that parking lot to the store. And guests
Okay.
parking in that area could use that sidewalk for access to the store.
okay. Deliveries, how would those be handled? What time of day?
Sure. So deliveries are typically night drops.
Okay,
They do it off hours. They could circulate from Penfield Road or Fairport 9 Mile Road. They would enter that middle drive lane, and they would utilize the crosswalk and the sidewalk ramps at the front of the store to service the building.
okay. And I assume that would be similar for the trash pickup as well?
That's right. Trash could approach through that drive aisle as you approach to the trash enclosure to pick up.
Okay.
And the location of the trash enclosure, we tried keeping up closer to the store to keep it away from the residential district in the back of the site.
Okay. Okay, thanks, Tim.
My pleasure.
Can I jump in quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
One. The 50 vehicle stacking, on this plan, how far does it go? Is it just the light gray area or the entire northern drive all the way to the entry?
Right to where the mouse is, at the light gray
That's-
area.
That's 50 vehicles.
Correct.
Okay. Go ahead, Terry.
That was my question. So basically, Tim, I was going to ask one a question about stacking for viewers. Yeah, no problem. That's what you get when you go last, I guess. But, so each lane, you figure, can hold up to 25 vehicles, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and my only other question, I guess, at this point, is this location and size similar to any other ones in Monroe County? Are they all the same size?
This one is bigger.
This is the biggest one.
The kitchen is even a little bit bigger. We have 5,600 square foot building here. The other locations are 500 square feet. And again, when you look at the actual site, it's bigger, but the other ones are part of shopping centers, except Greece. Greece is a smaller site than this, and they're looking at
I've been
bigger
to
sites
Greece.
ever since they built that one.
Yeah, I was at the Greece location when they first opened up.
Yep.
And for variances, you mentioned only 4 variances, if I counted correctly?
2 variances for the canopy, side yard and front yard,
Right.
and then proposed signage, which will be handled separately.
So 3, hopefully.
Yep.
Okay. I'm good right now, thank you.
Okay?
So what do we do to avoid all of the backup alarms on the vehicles that are coming at night? When you live in this area, you can hear the backup alarms from the trucks backing up to Wegmans a mile away. It's uncanny how that sound travels in the middle of the night when there's no other sound. So, what would you tell the residents that live in proximity to this site about limiting that kind of noise at all times in the middle of the night?
Yeah. We tried to design this site as a pull-through, so you don't have to back up to a loading dock. There's no loading dock that a truck has to back up to. So they really should be able to deliver without ever having to put it in reverse. The way to enforce that is educating your drivers. These aren't drivers who are hired. They're Chick-fil-A drivers, specific to Chick-fil-A, who coordinate time, delivery, paths with Chick-fil-A direct. So I would say that would be on the Chick-fil-A operator who manages this store to make sure that that's the way the deliveries are set up. That would be the best way to enforce that.
So if the board were to consider your application favorably, you would not be opposed to making that a condition?
Yeah, and I would even mention to some of the residents who might be listening in that if it wasn't ever an issue, I know the Chick-fil-A operator who would be selected for this site would always be willing to hear that feedback and try to work with the neighbors. So I would say and advise the neighbors if there was ever an issue to go talk to them to make sure that that would be followed.
You got a free chicken sandwich?
I wasn't going to bribe them on the first night, but maybe.
Okay.
Any other questions from the board at this time? Okay. At this time, I'd like to open it up to the audience. And those of you who are not here in the auditorium, you can participate, if you'd like, by calling in at 585-340-8771. You can also submit a comment electronically at www.penfield.org, and there should be a link on the homepage to this meeting, and it will direct you to make your submission online. I have 2 slips here so far. And just to reiterate, when I call your name, if you could come up to this table to my right, I guess your left, and speak into one of the microphones, give us your name and address, and then we'd love to hear your comments. So first person is Allyn Teeter. And I also want to please forgive me if I butcher the pronunciation of your name.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Allyn Teeter. I live at 136 Shirewood Drive in Penfield. I am here to respectfully share my objections to the proposed Chick-fil-A. My concerns center around the history and biases of the Chick-fil-A organization. This family-owned company has a long history of discrimination against the LGBTQ+ population, including significant donations to organizations that are linked to hate groups and oppose equality and marriage rights. These organizations seek to limit their rights as equal citizens. There is an opportunity here for Penfield to stand up for all members of the Penfield community. As allies, I believe we have an obligation to think about others and how we stop discrimination. In this case, by saying no to companies that have a history of discriminating. My understanding is that Mr. Cathy, who owns Chick-fil-A, because of the negative press, stopped company donations in 2019. But the family still makes those same contributions using the profits from Chick-fil-A. There is no middle ground on this. You either believe gay people are entitled to equal rights, or you do not. And how Penfield votes on this will indicate how we really feel about it. And I understand, Mr. Hetzke, from your previous comments that the planning board has a limited role in the conversation that I have brought forward here. So I would ask, which governmental organization, sect of Penfield should this be directed to, if not the planning board?
That's a good question. As I did say, we look at subdivision, site plan approval. My first reaction to your question is that just as there are laws protecting equal housing rights, things like that, a board such as this cannot turn down a certain type of housing, say. And there's no authority in Penfield, or any other municipality for that matter, that could do that. So if you had a large group of people that were against a certain housing development, for whatever reason, that legally, there's not a way to prevent that because of fair housing laws. I can't speak to 100% knowledge on this particular issue. I know that our purview, we are relegated. We can't take beliefs and biases into account. I'm not sure if the town board can do that either. I don't know if that answers your question. I'm not trying to, skirt it or anything like that. It's a good question. I don't think that things like this, probably the best way would be to not patronize that business.
I appreciate your comments. I find it disappointing because in one of the posts I put on the neighborhood messaging group, I said hate has should have no home in Penfield. And if the people who are running the planning board in the town of Penfield can't get behind that, that is exceedingly disappointing. But I do appreciate the opportunity to come and share my views with you all.
Thank you. Okay, Lou Hosenfeld, come on up.
Hello, my name is Lou Hosenfeld. I live at 2080 Harris Road, Penfield. I thank the board for giving me the opportunity to be here. And Jim, I could hear you better now that they fixed the mic.
Good.
And I just woke
Sorry
up this
about that.
morning with a little, little frog here. So I've been in here at Penfield for 50 years, and there's a lot of restaurants that been coming and going here. And we just put in a Burger King, and we have McDonald's, Taco Bell's, Panera Bread, Moles. Of course, we got the Cam Pizza, Salvatore's, Little Caesars. I know their pizza, they're different. Monte Albo, Mexico. Don Originals, slash the pub. But we don't really have a restaurant. I mean, we used to have, it was the Cornerstone, or it was Perkins way back. I don't know, you guys were probably really small then.
I remember Perkins.
So they're all fast food restaurants. So Chick-fil-A would be another fast food restaurant. And to me, we don't need another fast food restaurant. 2 weeks ago, I was in McDonald's, and the girl there said, "Sorry for the delay, but we're short on staff." And that wasn't the only place. I was at the filling station. We usually go there for a fish fry, and it was the same thing. Well, we're short on staff, so please be patient. So with all the restaurants that I named, they're going to be pulling from everybody else. So is this going to be short on staff? Another waiting? You can't get people to work now. How are you going to get them to work in whenever this would ever come up? And I didn't see the map, but on the back road, going out to Penfield Road, did you say there was going to be a left, traffic is going to be going left? That would be going past the bank and going left?
No, I think what you're referring to is when I made the comment about, you know how that road that's to the east of the bank?
Correct.
There's a way to get to, I still call it the Perkins place. I'm sorry for the Cornerstone people, but you could always turn in to the east of the bank and work your way around as sort of a series of 90-degree turns. That, I mean, frankly, it never made much sense to me, but that's a topic for a different day. But that will be straightened, based on this proposal, that would be straightened out to head further south straight instead of making all those 90-degree elbow jogs.
So
I don't know if that answered your question.
So you wouldn't be making a left going west on Penfield Road?
Well, you still,
because you can't.
well, you could. I mean, it's still a.
Or with the mall in a way, or the medium.
I think that's
median-
west.
the median is.
The median doesn't go as far as that. That drive is just east of the median. You can get around that to turn left.
Okay. So, 441 and Penfield Road, that's still a dangerous intersection there. And there's been many accidents since I've been there. But trying to make a left-hand turn when people are going right-hand to go into the bank or CVS, that would be an awful predicament going there. That's my
So alternatively, and today, there's, let's say, off Main Road access to the light by Jeremiah's. You can take those access roads to the south and get a signalized intersection to either head north or south. So you wouldn't have to head north to the east of the bank and then make a left on 441. You could either go as far south as the signalized intersection or the current driveway that's in between, and again, I'm going to call it the Perkins, that's no longer there, and the car wash. And that way and then you could make a left at the signal or in the left turn lane onto 441.
correct. And that predicament there, also trying to go over 2 lanes to make a left going west on Penfield Road.
Yes.
That's hard to get out there also, because I get my car washed there. Sometimes I go there and then go across. So something probably would have to be addressed there also, I would say. And getting back to the double cars, if the second car was there first when going up and getting your food, to me, that would be a safety issue of, like you mentioned before, about people being on their cell phones and stuff. Seemed like someone is going to be hit. Maybe they haven't before, but, because of the COVID, not a lot of people going out to eat,
No, but there are a lot of people going to drive-thrus.
Well, true. I just want to say that it seems like if the board has no power over applications, then anything that...
I didn't say that. I said that we can't make decisions based on ideological beliefs. They're two different things.
Yeah, okay, but you would take anybody's comment like mine into consideration. And I know some of the questions that you guys already addressed, the safety issue about the cars going forward, and there was a couple being short staff. You mentioned about that. But as far as another fast food, it doesn't make sense to just have another fast food restaurant there because there's so many here now. Somebody's going to be taken from somebody else, and eventually,
Well,
So
you could take the view that that's part of what makes our whole country work, was the competition and free market enterprise, that if, hey, I sell chicken today and I do a bad job, I'm getting lazy about making my chicken, and a new company comes in and they're great at it. And, so now everybody goes from my store to the new store. You see that happen in every single industry. You think that somebody's, think back to Kodak.
Yeah, I understand, and got a senior moment here. The coffee place now that's in
Starbucks.
That was there, I don't know, maybe it was 10 years ago, someplace.
Yeah.
It went out of business.
Where the mattress.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now they're back again?
Yeah.
How long is that going to be there? So we'll have another empty building? We got quite a few empty buildings in that area. I guess that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, would anyone else like to comment? I have another slip of paper, all right. Okay, Stephanie, is it Callan? Come on up.
Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak in front of you today. I've lived in Penfield for 2 years. I was a lifetime West Irondequoit person who married a Webster man, and now we chose a third city to live in. So
Welcome to town.
I have limited experience for what it means to engage with our local government, but we love our neighborhood on Valley Green Drive and believe wholeheartedly that we want to spend our time here. We want to grow in our neighborhood and bring our values of welcome and inclusion, our vision that we went to big cities in our 20s and brought home to Rochester, lives through in the future. Obviously, there's some discussion about ideology and what it means to welcome those who are unwelcoming to everybody, to our town. Can you elaborate a little more on the oversight process for welcoming a new business to town? Because it sounds like other than evaluating parking and traffic flow, what other oversight is there for us to say, I don't want this in my town. I don't want a business that thrives on giving money to hate groups?
If your question is there some type of organization, government agency, ministry, whatever, that says this group we like, this group we don't like, this type of business we like, this type of business we don't like, I don't believe that there is. There are zoning laws that were put in place. Those, I can't say that they never change. They do change every once in a while, but there's a process to go through that to say what type of development is allowed in a given place. And there are, in order to change the zoning, there are public hearings and studies and all sorts of things that people can get up and speak to the pros and cons of that.
But aside from that, it's anything goes. So as long as you have minimal parking spots, it's not offensive to the environment. I will agree, I think that back driveway that lots of us love as a cut through to the businesses definitely needs improvement, so I fully agree with that portion of the application. But it's a little concerning that aside from sort of site-specific metrics that need to be passed, hearing the voice of the people of Penfield about what we want here as a town. Because right now we're like careening towards like Hot Dog Row here on Fairport Road. And it just could be any number of forgettable chain restaurants. It's not a nice look. It's handy if you want a quick meal, but it doesn't have a nice aesthetic. It doesn't feel like a warm, welcome town. It just feels like a retail strip mall. So just curious about any sort of other oversight that could be had aside from parking.
I'd like to.
Sure.
On the town's website are regulations that the town is subject to, and many of those regulations with respect to what this board is charged with are driven by New York State or federal regulations. So what AJ described at the beginning of the public hearing is very much in play. There are projects that come before us that we might not want in the community. There are people that come before us that we might not care for, but one of the great things about this country is that you have a voice here this evening to share with us your concerns and your beliefs. And some of the other people in this audience might not agree with you, but you have that right. And as much as we may not like what other people say, and certainly nobody in this community advocates for supporting any hate group or anything like that, they're protected under state and federal laws. I would encourage you and anybody else in the audience, if you really want to see how you can impact change, then take AJ's advice, go to the town's website, pull up the town code, look under the planning section, find the factors for consideration, and then you'll see all of those elements of a project that we do have power to control. And if you can find something that you believe is in this application that might not meet one of those factors, or that could meet one of those factors better, in a way that's better for the community with some revisions, by all means, bring it before the board. This application is not going to be decided tonight.
Great.
I hope that helps.
I'd like to close out by encouraging everyone to eat dinner at your local chicken restaurant. For us, that's Chick Magnet. It's in Penfield.
It's a great place.
Local folks, great food, friendly to families with allergies. That can't always be said about chain chicken restaurants. So, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, would anyone else in the audience like to comment on the application? Okay. We don't have any electronic submissions. Let me just refresh this quick. Oh, we do. Okay, so I have a comment from Jeff Smith at 6 South Village Trail. I'd like to confirm there are no changes / stoplights, et cetera, proposed on 250 or 441 for this project. The traffic studies support this. And we are going through to answer the question. There are no additional stoplights proposed for this application or for this project. And we're in the process of reviewing the traffic analysis that's been submitted. Okay, one more, what do auctioneers say? Going once, going twice. Thank you all for coming. Any other questions from the board at the moment? No. All right. Again, thanks everyone for coming. We will call this hearing closed, and have a great weekend.
Mr. Chairman, I have one question in regards to seeker. Does the board declare intent to seeker to start the seeker distribution process, and would now be the time to appropriately start that process?
Well, we would be going for...
This is an unlisted action for seeker. The board could declare lead agency. We generally handle it as an uncoordinated review. So the planning board would handle seeker as the primary or lead agency.
Coordinated review with the zoning
Uncoordinated
board?
review. No, the zoning board for variances like this, they generally would fall under a type 2 type action. So we do an uncoordinated review. They would handle their own seeker review.
Great.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate your time this evening.
Sure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. Any quick comments on this before we table it? And
I had a quick question for staff. I might have missed this. The special use permit is due to?
The conditional use permit is because they're a restaurant. Within the general business district,
Okay.
Restaurants are conditionally permitted use.
Okay, so any of those properties in that district, it would still be under special use, like Burger King and?
Yeah, yes, generally.
conditional use.
Conditionally permitted use of place of public assembly.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you.
So tabling resolution, parking questions.
Well, first things first, I would like to suggest that we engage our other parking consultant to review the traffic impact statement that was submitted and get some feedback from them. And at the same time, to ask our consultant to weigh in on comments received, testimony tonight from the public and in writing. There were some very intelligent questions that were posed by people that you've posted on the drop, and I think it's appropriate to have those questions answered by our expert.
Yes, and that's something we can certainly do. We'll reach out to them.
I think number two is we need to get a written response back from the applicant with respect to the real need for parking. So, I heard that, maybe 100 spots is the magic number. Whatever that magic number is that the board is going to be challenged with considering, we need to take a look at if it's any significant amount more than that, then that other question about land banking, future parking needs to be addressed because, the landlord that used to own and operate the business next door, that's no longer there. I can't imagine what need they would have for, additional parking spaces. I mean, if it looks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, So, those are probably the biggest things that we need back. And there were, I think, 3 other responses from you to the PRC comments that you indicated that you would get back to the town in the future. So, I'd like to get those addressed as well.
Okay, any other issues?
Any other questions or comments on the needed variances? And Doug, is that something that we would start next of submitting for area variances with the
Yes.
ZBA?
Yes, the 2 boards can review those concurrently.
So that was in regards to the canopy that we discussed early on. Any other?
2 directions for the canopy and the signage, and of course, that would be application before the zoning board.
Yep. Great.
Any way to dress up the building a little more? Make it, I don't know, add some architectural features to make it look a little nicer, or?
Any suggestions? We did add the glass to the backside. That was an initial PRC comment, because that is the backside of the building, but it's facing a public right-of-way. Yeah, there they are.
I mean, we could have Chris review it.
Yeah, we can send it off to Chris.
That's our architectural consultant.
Architectural consultant.
If you have other prototypes that your client has built in other parts of the country or other parts of New York State that you'd like to offer, different facades.
Yeah, the success we've had up here is with the brick. They've got EFS in other locations, but we've kind of scratched that off to go with the 2-tone brick. They carry the different color brick high and low to break up the facade a little bit, so it's not just the water table with that darker color brick. It travels the height a little bit. But yeah, we can take a look at some other options that might be able to.
If you have something and you want to get that to the town staff, they can share that with our architectural consultant, and then you'll be having those other potential facade options reviewed at the same time,
Right. Okay, anything else?
I make a motion to authorize staff to proceed with the tabling resolution with the conditions we just discussed.
Give a second.
I'll second.
Hetzke.
Hetzke, aye.
Aken.
Aken, aye.
Burton.
Burton, aye.
Kanauer.
Kanauer, aye.
Tydings.
Tydings, aye.
Okay. Well, there being no further business this evening, we will adjourn. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.